Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping into the absolute darkest, most claustrophobic corners of the human psyche. We're looking at a world where even your own involuntary reflexes can literally sign your death warrant. A place where intimacy is a crime, and genuine human connection has been surgically replaced by mass political hysteria. This isn't just a story about being watched from the outside. It's a terrifying breakdown of how an oppressive state actually invades the internal, physical reality of the human body.
Okay, let's dive into this. Your worst enemy was your own nervous system. We're beginning our descent into the mind of Winston Smith. He's sitting in a tiny alcove in his apartment, hiding from the ever-watchful telescreen, doing something that seems so simple to us, but is completely forbidden for him. He's trying to write in his secret diary. But as he tries to jot down a memory, an encounter from 3 whole years ago, he's suddenly overcome by this paralyzing wave of physical and mental agony. It's just this incredibly visceral reaction to the sheer terror and unnatural pressure of living under Big Brother. Section 1, the body as a traitor, when biology becomes a crime. So think about it. When every waking moment of your life is a performance, eventually your biology is going to rebel. This isn't just some mild headache Winston is dealing with. He's gripped by this violent, overwhelming urge to just scream filthy words at the top of his lungs. He literally wants to kick his table or grab his inkpot and smash it right through the window. These aren't logical, thought-out reactions. They're the desperate, bursting cries of a human nervous system that is just being crushed. In Oceania, an uncontrollable facial tic is a deadly flaw. Winston actually remembers watching a totally ordinary, middle-aged party member walking down the street, and suddenly the guy's face contorts with this rapid, involuntary twitch. Snap, snap, like a camera shutter. Now, in our world, that's just stress, right? But in Oceania, that is a death sentence. It perfectly shows the horrifying reality that, under absolute constant surveillance, the boundary between your mind and your body just shatters. You can't even trust your own involuntary muscles to keep your secrets.
Section 2, the politics of intimacy, controlling the private world. Winston's mind wanders to a dark evening in a narrow side street near a railway station. He remembers a woman standing in a doorway under a street lamp. She's wearing this heavy, mask-like makeup, thick white face paint, bright red lips, and she's offering him her services. Now, what's really interesting about this memory is the sensory contrast. We really have to look at what Winston is trying to escape. On one hand, you have the party's world, the world Winston trudges through every single day. It's defined by these institutional, sterile, just frankly depressing odors, the permanent smell of boiled cabbage, and the sharp, acidic reek of sour gin. But then, Winston follows this masked woman down into a dim, musty basement kitchen, and down there, the air is thick with the smell of crushed bugs and cheap perfume. It's dirty, it's totally sordid, but it's a profoundly different, visceral reality compared to that manufactured, sterile world above ground.
5 years. 5 years in a forced labor camp. That is the punishment for a party member who gets caught consorting with a prostitute. Yet, believe it or not, it happens all the time. So why? Well, paradoxically, the party actually tolerates it as a minor, dirty outlet. They don't instantly execute you for it like they do with other thought crimes. They allow this sordid underworld to exist precisely because it's purely transactional. It is completely devoid of any real, deep human connection.
And that leads us straight to the party's true goal. The state isn't just being puritanical here. They aren't banning intimacy just because they're prudish. No, their aim is much, much more sinister. They want to strip all pleasure from the act itself and utterly destroy eroticism. Love and passion, those are dangerous enemies to the regime, because if they can destroy eroticism, they can take all of that natural, passionate human energy and redirect it. They twist that frustrated desire into pure political hysteria, into events like the 2 minutes hate, basically fueling a fanatical, unyielding devotion to Big Brother. It's terrifyingly brilliant.
Section 3, the perfect party wife, the stiffening of humanity.
To really see this destruction of intimacy up close, we have to look at Catherine, Winston's estranged wife. Now, they haven't seen each other in 11 years, which is very much to Winston's relief. On the outside, she was tall, fair-haired, athletic, but inside, she was a total void, completely emotionally dead and intellectually vacant. Winston remembers her as having an entirely brainwashed mind, famously noting that she had not a thought in her head that was not a slogan. Every single belief, every reaction she ever had was just a prepackaged piece of party propaganda. Her humanity had been entirely hollowed out and replaced by the state. This totally captures the devastating reality of their marriage. Catherine completely detested intimacy. However, she insisted they perform it exactly once a week.
It was this agonizing, joyless chore that she actually called their duty to the party, or as she bluntly put it, making a baby. During these weekly encounters, Winston remembers how her body would just completely stiffen. She showed this absolute resistance to any physical pleasure, turning completely rigid like a cold wooden jointed doll. Intimacy was literally reduced to an industrial reproductive contribution to the state's workforce. Section 4. A subversive act of rebellion, passion as treason. So, the crucial point is this. In a world where the state mandates you must act like a wooden doll, simply claiming your own physical agency becomes incredibly dangerous. Mutual desire transforms from a basic human instinct into the ultimate political rebellion. Passion itself becomes treason. Why? Because passionate intimacy creates a private world that the state cannot control. A genuine, shared bond between two people is a fortress that Big Brother just cannot penetrate. And this is exactly why Winston is so agonized by his reality. He is desperate for a real relationship, but instead he's forced to seek out these sordid, joyless encounters in musty basements. His longing for real human connection is quite literally an existential threat to Oceania, and this desperate longing is what drives him, inevitably, right back to that dark memory of the basement kitchen.
Section 5. The failure of confession. The climax in the basement.
Let's move to the climax of this memory and see how this builds. We pull back down into that dim, bug-smelling basement kitchen. Winston is standing there with the masked woman, preparing to commit his crime, desperately hoping to find some kind of escape. But the horrific reality of life under Big Brother unfolds step by step. First, Winston turns up the oil lamp, breaking through the dim lighting. Second, that harsh light reveals a devastating truth. The thick white makeup is deeply caked over heavy wrinkles, and her hair is streaked with gray. And then, step 3, the final tragic reveal. When she opens her mouth, he discovers she has absolutely no teeth. The young woman he thought he saw is actually in her 50s. And this brilliantly illustrates how all romance, all beauty, has been violently stripped away from his world.
But honestly, the most agonizing part of this entire memory is this. He went ahead and slept with her anyway. A profound, crushing wave of disgust and defeat washes over him, but he proceeds. It just shows Winston's sheer, absolute desperation for any semblance of human touch. He is so starved for connection, so desperate to escape the sterile, slogan-filled world of the party, that he'll embrace even this corrupted, tragic shadow of intimacy. Now, we snap back to the present moment. Winston is sitting in his alcove with his diary. He closes his eyes, presses his fingers to his face. He's finally done it. He's committed this dirty, painful memory to paper. You see, he hoped that by writing it down, it would act as a confession, a sort of therapy to rid him of his internal torment. But actually, scratch that. It doesn't work at all. The therapy failed. The agonizing tension remains. That paralyzing urge to scream filthy words is just as strong right now as it was before he even picked up the pen. And we are left to ponder this really haunting reality. If confession requires the possibility of forgiveness or change, how do you heal in a world where your own thoughts are a crime? In Winston's world, there is no outlet for genuine emotional healing. Writing down his sins doesn't cleanse him. Actually, it only crystallizes his doom. He is trapped in this perpetual cycle of psychological repression and silent, desperate rebellion, just wondering if any escape from the prison of his own mind will ever be possible. It's a terrifying question that lingers long after the diary is closed. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the anatomy of repression. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.